G'day guys, this is Jackson Milan, the Wealth Mentor, and I'm super pumped to be here today with a good friend of mine, Brett Murray from Make Bullying History and SafeHeart. Now, Brett and I met, I'd have to say it must be fate. Things happen for a reason, but recently there was a situation that unfolded around a circumstance of bullying. I felt a compelling need to have to do something about it. And a phenomenal girl in my network, Sammy, connected me with Brett, and we've been working together quite closely ever since. So I really wanted to get this opportunity to get Brett on a Zoom call so we can have a bit of a conversation and talk about his experience, his journey, and also what we can take from his experience around how do we build resilience in our communities and be able to promote resilience in our clients, in our networks, to be able to see the other side of this whole coronavirus crisis. So Brett, thanks for joining us, mate. How you doing?
Pleasure, Jackson. I'm doing well. And yourself?
Doing very well, thank you, mate. So let's talk a little bit about you, mate. What's your story?
Oh, geez, where do we start? Well, I'll do the abbreviated version. Was a kid who grew up in a single-parent family. Parents divorced when I was 9. Dad decided to leave the picture when I was 11. Didn't see him again till I was almost 19. Was chronically bullied at school. Only went to year 10, never went on to year 11 or 12 because of the bullying. Got out into the workforce, thought that, bullying would cease at school. And so I left school at year 10, which is 15. And by the time I turned 16, I'd left home and went out into the big bad world and realized that that was just as bad. But I made a decision at the age of 16 that anyone who came in contact with Brett Murray must walk away feeling valued through a positive experience. And that changed my worldview, and I started surrounding myself with positive people. Even at the age of 16, I just knew that I wanted to hang out with people who valued me and honoured me. So I started gravitating towards those sorts of people within the surfing community and so forth. Went on to earn a trade in spray painting, vehicle painting. Then from there, I was always involved in youth work from that age of 16, surf comps and stuff like that, and just found my way into youth work in local community groups. So that was something I just did on weekends. Then the spray painting and the youth work culminated. Became a spray painting teacher at an automotive training program called Handbrake Turn, which was designed to give kids a hand, break their predicament, turn their life around. So we would take kids who were passionate about cars, like stealing them, and we would turn them into apprentices. And I worked my way through that program, started in 1999 in Parramatta. And by 2000, end of 2000, I was the manager. And in 2000, we were judged as the number one course of its kind in the world by the International Youth Foundation. I managed that program till 2002, and then dabbled in politics. Sort of was offered an opportunity to get into politics. Had no idea what I was doing, and thank God I didn't win because did not want to. That was not me. And from there, I found myself unemployed. Wife, 3 kids by this stage, 3 young children. It's 2003. What am I going to do? And the thing that was the common denominator through that line was I was working with youth, and I was pretty good at it. Communicating, connecting. And so I just started speaking in 2003, youth motivation. And within 2 to 3 weeks, had a school say, do you do anything on bullying? And I said, well, I was bullied, and I'll share that story. And so I basically shared that story just off the cuff, had kids in tears, told how I was chronically bullied and then, be almost suicidal in year 10. And then started sharing the story of how I turned a setback into a comeback. Went on to represent my state in 5 different sports and became a state champion in boxing, and had done pretty well. Worked at this automotive training program, and I just shared the story and just shared hope, and just wanted to have that sort of catchphrase. If I'm talking to you at your school, you need to walk away feeling valued through a positive experience. And the teachers just went, can you come back? And I said, yeah. And they said, do you do like boot camps? And this is when boot camp physical training just started. I think it was James Braybon and all those sort of people. And I went, yeah, I'll do a boot camp with your 10 worst bullies. Let's do it. And somehow Penrith Panthers Rugby League Club heard about it, gave us $10,000 to do it. Channel 7's Today Tonight got wind of it and filmed it. and it just exploded from there. Then 2004, took a bunch of Muslim kids across the Kokoda track in New Guinea from Punchbowl Boys High. That exploded. Then I was given a TV series by Channel 9 in 2005, which went to air in 2006. And along the way, I was just editing this bullying message to fit it within the curriculum. And before you knew it, we became known as the bullying organisation, the anti-bullying organisation. I was the anti-bully guy. And yeah, it's just gone from there. And now we established Make Bullying History the course, and then that became, we realised we needed to become a charity. That happened 2015. And over Christmas, 2019, 2020, we realised we needed to broaden our spectrum because bullying has so many facets. Like today, we're talking about resilience. There's leadership involved, lots of soft skills. There's team building. And so we don't just deal with just bullying, we deal with all these others. And then it's the common denominator of the bullying was fatherlessness and the impacts that fathers have. And then the extension of bullying, which is domestic violence. So we've produced resources and programs for all of these topics. And so it wasn't just bullying. And what we do is we build safe people in safe places. My wife established SafeHeart, which was our domestic violence education prevention arm. And we realised that has to be who we're known as now. So SafeHeart Foundation is now what we're known as. We deliver Make Bullying History programs. And we're excited for the future, and during this time of lockdown, I think it's a fantastic way to share the information.
And I agree, mate. Look, I think many of us overlook the significance that bullying has in our society. I myself was bullied when I was a kid, and I guess I was lucky that I had a father who was very rough and tumble. He's basically spent his entire life fighting on the street. So his advice to me was fight your way out of it, because even if you lose, they're going to think twice about trying to pick on you again. However, it was very much fighting fire with fire. And I was never really taught the skills that I probably needed to diffuse those situations. Or more importantly, there was no one that was dealing with the bullies themselves. All of these instances of bullying, and you hear these stories of them getting swept under the rug. The teachers potentially don't want to deal with it. There's the parents don't want to deal with it. Even my nephews, they've been extensively bullied for years, and my sister had tried absolutely everything to try and fix the situation, and the only solution they had was actually to move, which is a terrible situation. And I think what we overlook, particularly in the entrepreneurial space, is the significance that these catalysts have in our day-to-day life, even as adults. Because as you said, it didn't stop when you left school, right?
No. I mean, I can run off onto workplace bullying for hours. So it has huge implications in our adult lives. And oftentimes it's learned behavior from when we're at school. And the bullies, if they're not corrected and they're not arrested, as in, their attention arrested and shown a different way, this positive reinforcement of negative behavioral patterns, they just enact that in the corporate sector. And that's how people think. We hear it all the time in the entrepreneurial world, the coach world: outlast, out hustle, out grind, out wit, outsmart, smash your competition. And sure, if you don't work, you don't eat. That's, if you're not going to get your dream by being lazy, but you don't have to destroy people around you to get there. And so I think if we can, pass on what we've learned over the last 17 years of dealing with bullying at the coalface at a corporate level, we're dealing with professionals and teachers, and even, we've delivered anti-bullying presentations to law firms, and it's just changed the entire way their entire organisation is run. We've delivered anti-bullying training for local councils and all of their staff, hundreds and hundreds of people. So it can make a massive difference. And I think entrepreneurs, we tend to be lone rangers in the sense, so we don't have to worry about anyone else but ourselves. But when we're adding value to those big clients that have got, 10, 20, 50, 100 staff, the biggest thing that stops productivity, I found, is morale. Morale's down,
huge.
Productivity's down. People feel like they're not being valued or validated. They're being picked on, bullied. The whole thing comes undone. It's like just pulling that thread, and just unravels.
And I think that's important now more than ever, right? Because I guess the reason why we're having this conversation today is because I think there's a great opportunity for all of us to hit the reset button.
Yeah,
Like, how often do we have a month where we are stuck at home, forced to be at home,
yeah,
where we have an opportunity to reflect?
yeah,
And I think more importantly, the key thing that we need to get through this is resilience, because I think as a society, as a country, as a globe, we are now more disconnected than ever.
yeah. We've got. Isn't it funny? We've got all these technologies on how to communicate, but no one's connected. We can communicate via text, via email. The list goes on. WhatsApp, but how many people can sit down, turn their devices off, and have a real connection face to face with each other, and have a long lasting conversation more than 5 minutes?
Without it getting awkward. It's peculiar. Like, don't call me. I just only text me. It's really weird. So what I'd really love to do, because the penny dropped with me when I spoke to you, and the way that you explained it, I've never had anybody explain so profoundly the whole idea of bullying. Because look, you're a master at this, mate. But what I was able to see is that it's not just about bullying, because I think people are either say I'm not a bully, or I'm not being bullied, so it doesn't apply to me, which is, I think, completely wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what I'd love to do, mate, is unpack a little bit more of the themes that we see in terms of the work that you've been doing over the course of the last 17 years, but more importantly, how this allows us to be more connected and make people more connected. So
Absolutely.
so let's talk about what is bullying. What is it?
Okay, so bullying is long-term, ongoing violence, threats of violence, antagonization. So that those are the key contributing factors. It's got to be long-term, ongoing. Violence obviously speaks for itself. Threats of violence, where people feel threatened. That's oftentimes played out in domestic violence, where women have been, predominantly women, have been abused, but they've never had a hand laid on them, because there's always the threat that he might explode. And so the posturing, the intimidation, the looks, the loud voice, and the woman's so afraid that one day he's going to snap. It might happen for 20 years, never had a hand laid on her, but she's traumatized because this has been long-term and ongoing threats of violence. Antagonization is all the non-violent stuff we know. And at the end, the violence, threats of violence, antagonization that leads to power imbalance. So either a group of people or a person feels powerless in the situation. So, and all the non-physical stuff is anything from dirty looks continually in the workplace. This is classic commonplace. Emails that are sent with overtones of, you better watch yourself. You know, if you really want to work here for a long term, you might need to pull your head in or whatever. But it's long term and ongoing. If someone just wants to be nasty, rude, irresponsible, vicious, malicious, small-minded, self-centered, childish, we call those incidences for what they are. But when it's habitual, it's long-term, ongoing. And a lot of people say, well, what's long-term and ongoing? If it's more than 2 weeks, if there's a pattern of behavior that goes for more than 2 weeks, and it might not be every day, but it's regular occurring. That might not happen for a week, but then it happens again on Wednesday, and then it doesn't happen until the next Friday, but it's continually happening, then we know it's bullying behavior.
Okay, that's really clear. All right. So I think there are some still ambiguities out there. So what isn't bullying?
Okay, so I touched on it. Bullying is not someone getting into a fight. It's not someone getting into a conflict. It's not someone having a difference of opinion. It's not someone calling you names, or even, I've got to make a very clear distinction here, because the Federal Cyber Safety Commission, they did a lot of research, and we helped with a fair bit of their research and contributed to it. For cyberbullying to be, or cyber behavior to be classed as cyberbullying, remember, it's long-term, ongoing. In cyber world, if you say something, just say you said, and I know this has never happened, but say you said something disparaging towards me on a Facebook page or whatever, that doesn't make you a bully necessarily. But because other people can then screenshot that and replicate it millions of times in a second, it becomes long-term and ongoing because it's out there forever.
I
So
understand.
online behavior can be classed as bullying, even if it's a one-off incident, because it can be replicated. But most behaviors that are social interaction, if they're not repeated over a period of time, they're not bullying. When classic one, we're talking workplace resilience. We've got this model of management now that's been around for about the last 5 to 7 years of performance-based management. People sign up for a 6-month contract. They've been told, okay, you get paid this to deliver this in this amount of time. If they don't deliver this, but they've been paid this, the review comes up and they say, well, look, you haven't delivered. We don't think we'll review your contract. That's called accountability and responsibility. A lot of people cry foul and go, you're bullying me. You're picking on me. That's not bullying. Even though you may have been reminded, you may have had a bit of pressure applied. It's called accountability. It's called being an adult.
Yeah.
And a lot of people fold back into, oh, I'm being bullied, because the legislation in Australia, which came in 2014, January 1, the laws are really skewed towards the employee, not the employer. It's the onus is on the employer to prove you didn't bully rather than the employee to prove that they did. And this is where we come in. We provide anti-bullying training or workplace health and safety training specifically on bullying, which legislation states has to be delivered. And this is where a lot of people misunderstand too. Anti-bullying training is not induction, where you say, oh, we don't put up with bullying behavior. You haven't given anyone anything. You've just told them you don't like bullying.
Yeah.
So delivering acute bullying behavior. So if that employer has said, no, remember when we did the anti-bullying training, we had Brett or Jackson or someone else come in and deliver that, or we did that online course that was available through them. I've been asking you to deliver what you signed up to deliver. By me asking you, I'm just holding you accountable. I'm not bullying you. So bang, the whole court case has been diffused right there. So I think it's really important to understand that accountability and responsibility are not bullying. That's just adult behavior. But when someone is demeaning, devaluing, degrading, they're creating a power imbalance in a very derogatory way, and it makes you feel as the individual you're less of a person. So let's go back to that example. You're not performing really well. Instead of them saying, hey, look, this might not be good for you moving forward, that's accountability. If they go, geez, you're useless, you're hopeless, don't even know why we even bothered hiring you, and they're doing that, that would be classed as bullying.
Makes sense. Okay. So I think the definitions and the education is super important, because here's the problem, and I'm sure you've seen this countless times, is that this education, particularly in the corporate space and particularly in small business, just doesn't exist.
No.
And when it is delivered in big corporates, because I've worked in big organizations, it's very much like an induction process. Like, here's our induction guide. It's here in chapter 37.5.
Yeah.
Make sure you get to that. Yeah, sure thing. I'll get to that.
Yeah, everyone ticks the box. I read it.
Exactly. So I think this is the problem, right? I think people definitely need to get educated. So let's talk about the root cause. Why do people bully?
Okay, this is where I love to pull back the onion, because the common denominator, and this has been proven over like literally decades of research, the common denominator, now of course there are exceptions to the rule, but the common denominator is poor self-esteem or low self-worth on the bully's part. So the bully basically does not like themselves. Somewhere along the line throughout their life, they have been degraded and devalued to the point where they don't like themselves by word or deed. And we really break this down in the course that we've got. We talk about mindset. The mindset language I use is the lens. I talk about having a lens. The lens is your belief system through which you see the world. And a lens is usually often built on your own opinion that was based on fact. But oftentimes, even though facts have happened, our opinion, which becomes our belief system, isn't the truth. It's different. And so, for example, someone who was poorly treated and mistreated as a young person in their life, that's a fact. That happened. They develop over time this belief system that, or their opinion about themselves is, I'm useless, I'm hopeless, I'm worthless, nobody likes me. That becomes their belief. Belief is their lens through which they look. They see the whole world through that lens of, I'm hopeless, I'm useless, I'm worthless. But that's not the truth. The truth is everyone has intrinsic, incredible, amazing value and worth. Everyone's like we're all unique. And this is what I love sharing with people. There's 3 characteristics that every human being has that no one else has before this time in history or since. And that is your retinal scan, your fingerprint, and your DNA strand. Those 3 characteristics are yours and yours alone. Even if you're an identical twin, they're yours. So that makes you unique, which means if you're unique, there's no one like you. That means you're incomparable. You're beyond value. You're immeasurably precious. And if we know that, that's a truth. That's proven historically, metaphysically, scientifically, physiologically. It's proven in every way, shape, and form that you have value because you are unique. And so the truth is you're unique, but your opinion, your belief system is I'm useless, I'm hopeless, I'm worthless because of facts that happened. So we try and change the lens with the bully. So that's why bullies bully. They believe that they're not worth much. They don't feel listened to, validated, valued. They don't belong. So to do that, to get those needs met, which every human being has, they think by disempowering someone else, the power imbalance, they feel powerful. I feel better. I feel listened to. I was the loudest person in the room. I intimidated everyone. No, I don't. I feel unreal. But then once that situation disappears, that feeling dissipates and they're back with the lens. The lens doesn't change. So that's why bullies bully. It's a poor self-esteem and low self-worth. And at the end of the day, they want to be loved. They want to be heard. They want to be validated. They want to belong.
And I think there's varying degrees of this, right? Like there's extreme cases where there's people who are bullies in all aspects of their life, right? It's just, it's ultimately become their identity of how they self-identify and how they are represented in the world. Yeah. And there's also varying degrees where it only appears in certain aspects. And I think this comes back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And I think this is one of the biggest reasons why we are so disconnected.
Yeah.
Is at some level, unless we understand our own intrinsic value, then we can't share value with other people.
Oh, absolutely. It's really hard to love others when you don't love yourself. It's really hard. And when we're, like you said, Jackson, when we're disconnected and we're always trying to fight to be known, to be listened to have those needs met, it's really hard. And what we're doing, what the bully does is they actually sabotage what they need. They need friendship. They need connectivity. They need nurturing. They need love, care, affection. But the bully, by behaving like a bully and thinking they're going to get those needs met, is actually sabotaging and destroying the opportunity to have all those things that community and friends and family produce.
Yeah. And so when it comes to self-identifying, do you feel that for somebody to get help and be reformed as a bully, they need to ask for help?
Yeah, I think most times the most effective breakthroughs we've had we're talking students, teachers who admitted they were bullies, people in the corporate sector, is when we present, the way we present is non-judgmental. We just present the facts. This is what we've learned over the years, sharing our stories and sharing my story of being bullied, sharing vulnerability. So by being vulnerable myself as a presenter opens up the world for the others who are listening. And whether it's online or whether it's, personal interface presentation styles, people go, oh, wow. Okay. So I'm not feeling judged. I'm listening to this person tell their story. They're explaining some really cool stuff, but hang on. And this light comes on. They just realize you're reading my mail. You're talking about me. And when people realize that and you make it a safe place by being vulnerable, I think that's really, we think to be safe, you've got to have your guard up like a boxer. I'm safe. But the opposite is true. When you're vulnerable and your hands down, you're saying, hey, look, I'm disarmed. You're safe. I'm not going to hurt you. Then people will come into your world and go, well, and it's amazing. At the end of every presentation, people just open up and go, I didn't realize what I was doing. I just didn't realize, because it's learned behavior.
Sure.
And when people get that light bulb moment, they tend to self-police. They just say, I don't want to be like this anymore. I didn't realize I was hurting people so much. I don't want to be like that. And that's majority of the cases. Sure, you will find people who are just proud and arrogant and just go, I don't care. Sometimes those people, you've just got to admit, some people can't be helped. You can't help everyone. And that's something that for those of us who have a passion to help people is hard to admit and hard to own. You know, you want to help everyone. You want to believe that everyone's not beyond help, but there may be those few cases that are just too hard. But you know what? Some of the things that we've learned is you might not be able to help them immediately, but 5 years down the track, your presentation, your information they shared just went bang, and all of a sudden the penny drops, and you were the catalyst of the change that could happen in their life many years down the track.
And here's the synergies, and I think this is what many people overlook, which from our conversations, we can see it. That if we can, by letting our guard down and showing our own vulnerabilities, help a bully reform, which bullying, I think we can all agree, has one of the most significant impacts in the lives of the people on the other side.
Yes.
Potentially life-ending consequences.
Absolutely, yeah.
There are very few other comparable situations that can be compared to bullying in terms of its significance.
Oh, yeah. Well, 80% of all suicides, adult and youth in Australia, are directly correlated to bullying. Bullying creates anxiety, brings on depression, mental health issues stem from it. So, yeah, it's huge. And like you said, Jackson, there's very few issues that our humanity face that have such a detrimental effect.
And here's the thing, as a coach, as a leader, as a business owner, if you can get those skills and you can facilitate this change in bullying, imagine what else you can do with your clients, with your colleagues, with your staff.
Yeah. Oh, it builds trust. It really does. And by being vulnerable, it takes courage and strength. So you're actually showing strength. And by sharing your weaknesses too, it actually highlights your resilience because, hey, you're still standing. You're still here. You didn't allow these situations to knock you down and keep you down. You got back up. And by sharing that, there's almost an unspoken language where people hear your story that you went through that and look at you now. No way. How'd you do that? And that touches on resilience. So, you know, you learn to value yourself and you know that you're worth your dream. You're worth the effort to get back up again. And then you can pass that on. And once your clients hear that and see that relationship of trust opens up a world where they just go, speak into my life. You know, here I am, you know, how else can you help me? And it's just amazing the platform it creates.
Look, it's a powerful metaphor. And I know from firsthand experience, like when I've always believed that by sharing openly and honestly and admitting your own failures and being able to talk to what you've learnt through that experience is one of the most empowering things that you can do.
Oh, and it's also cathartic as well because you get healing through it. Even as parents, like we do parenting seminars because parents are freaking out, their kids are going to get bullied and all that. So we dive into parenting, but we say to parents, don't make out that you're perfect. Admit your mistakes. Ask your kids to forgive you. And parents, what? It messes with their heads. But kids will forgive at the drop of a hat because they're just pure love machines. You know, our kids just love us unconditionally. And when we admit a failure, the respect, like my two boys, they're in their 20s now, but through, you know, their preteens and teenage years, if I made a mistake and I would get down on my knees to their level and say, guys, I'm so sorry. Can you forgive me? First thing, hug, you know, you get the hug and the respect level now is they know dad's not perfect, but dad's always got our best interests at heart. He loves us and he's not afraid to, I've taught them humility. I've taught them that to be humble and vulnerable is also to be a very strong man. And so that's how they are. And the relationship, you know, most parents we hear, you know, that once their kids go through teenage years, there's this separation anxiety and kids don't want to be home and they want to get out of the house. Well, my kids argue about who's more like dad because they want to hang out with us.
I love that.
Cool.
That's great.
And so I suppose the proof's in the pudding. The fruit is there and it's evident. And just doing that with your own clients, it builds a relationship that is very rare in the corporate world. And it's beyond transaction. It's transformation. It really builds a brilliant long-term ongoing relationship.
And I think we're coming full circle, mate, that for a very long time there, given that things were so convenient, it was so easy, that everything was about instantaneous transactions.
Yeah.
And the idea of deferring gratification for anything is like, look at this Afterpay and all of these kind of buy now, pay later things.
Yeah,
But,
yeah,
but I think it's coming full circle, but people want real human connections
they do. Yeah,
because they're so absent.
yeah,
So let's talk about what's happening now. Obviously, where we're at right now in terms of this coronavirus crisis, everyone's fearful.
yeah,
When we're fearful, we sometimes maybe act out of character. There may be some power shifts in terms of how we facilitate. We may not be so careful with our words, and things can be interpreted wrongly when we're talking online.
yeah, yeah.
So how can we take everything that you've learned over the last 17 years and apply it to the here and now?
Okay. Well, something that we always encourage organisations is that always, so like with online communication, email, text message, always presume that it's been delivered with your best interests at heart with a smile, because online communication does not have a tone of voice. And it comes back to that lens I spoke about earlier. We don't read and hear things as they are. We don't see and hear things as they are. We see and hear things as we are. And so just arrest yourself. If an example, if your boss says, I need to see you next week, a positive person says, oh, awesome, they need to see me next week. A negative person says, oh, crap, they need to see me next week. Same words, different lens. So it's a great time for us to stop and think, how do I hear things? How do I see things? How do I say things? You mentioned tone of voice. I just did a quick little live on Instagram earlier this morning and just thought, while we're at home with our families, where we're almost forced to spend time again with our loved ones, how do you communicate? How's your tone of voice? Like years ago, and this is something that I readily admit, my wife and I used to get into lots of arguments because of my tone of voice. And she'd say, why do you talk to me in that tone of voice? And I'd answer by, what tone of voice? There you go, self-explanatory. I was carrying stress and anxiety, and I was so stubborn, I wouldn't listen to what she was saying. And this is a person I love more than anyone on the planet. So when I stopped and listened, really listened, and it wasn't just hearing, I was listening, I realized I was talking so harsh and gruff for no reason. And humility, I apologized. And, being vulnerable here, our marriage had to go through a lot of reparation. And now, well, we are better than we've ever been, married 26 years and more in love than ever. But there was a time there where it was skating on thin ice because of me and my communication. So here's a great time to think about how we talk to our families, how we talk to our colleagues. There's going to be stress. People are losing their jobs. People aren't being paid. You might have invoices out there and they're not being paid, they're being delayed. We've got to understand that everyone's in this together. I can't imagine there's a lot of people who are just rolling in cash at the moment and have just got money to burn and just pay their invoices immediately and stuff like that. So even communicating to some of your clients who may not have paid, say, hey, I understand you're under stress and pressure. How are we going with that? Can we work something out? Might be just a brilliant way of communicating in a kind-hearted way rather than a harsh, you owe me, get the money in because you're stressing out. So that just some thoughts.
I think that's really important. I think that comes back to that analogy of not always having our guard up, right?
Yeah.
We're all in the people-to-people business. It doesn't matter what it is, whether you're facilitating at a school to a bunch of kids or whether you're in a boardroom with a bunch of experienced executives. We're all people. And one of the things that I've started to question myself on is, when was the last time I just checked in on people? Just to say, hey, just wanted to check in. Are you all right? Is everything going okay? Is there anything I can do to help you?
Yeah, build that community. And because community, I like breaking down words. Community can, if you break it down, it can mean common unity. We've all got something in common. We're all part of our neighborhood, or we might be a part of a group like yours, the Wealth Creator, or other organizations that we're a part of. So we've got that common unity, and where there's unity, there's power. There's free flowing information. There's help. When people are divided, there's blockage, and there's the people come to stalemates. So if we can have that idea of common unity, community in this together, then we'll get through it together, I think.
I think that's really important, mate. And this is why I love all of the stuff that you've been doing. I think bullying is definitely a taboo subject.
Mm.
And I think we need to remove the stigma
Yeah.
because it has such a bigger and longer lasting impact than just the bullying, because I think it definitely creates that sense of community once we can get past it.
Yeah.
So mate, to kind of sum this up, I see that everyone should be involved in this. They should be learning these skills because it's so impactful in a lot of different areas. So whether you're a coach, you're a leader, you're a business owner, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a community leader like or a priest, or in the religious space, how can people leverage your skills and how could they work with you and the team?
Well, we've developed an online course which we're continuing to develop, continuing to add value to it. So that's the best way to log on. We're 99% finished rebuilding our website. Our current website is Make Bullying History. Our new website will be called SafeHeart. But Make Bullying History is still there. Our online course is there. You can download it. And we're adding different aspects to it as we speak. We're going to create, Facebook community where we can create this community we're talking about, allow myself to be able to speak into your lives once you've learnt the modules and what, the process and procedures of what bullying is, what bullying isn't, everything we've talked about today. And if you want to make a difference with it, then yeah, I'm happy to, connect with you and pass on the details and share everything I've learned over the last 17 years.
Fantastic, mate. There's definitely a wealth of knowledge there, and I'm super excited to delve into it more myself and be able to share with more other people, because it's going to have such a big impact on lots of different people, and it's ultimately life changing. So, so mate, I really appreciate the time that you've shared with us today. I think there's been some really valuable gold nuggets there that we can all take away, and I think even when stresses are high, anxiety is high, we've all got our guard up. I think we definitely need to embrace with open arms so we can all stick through this together.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Jackson. It's been a pleasure.
Good to catch up, mate. So anyone who wants to catch up and touch base with Brett and the team at SafeHeart or Make Bullying History, we'll include all of the details in the description. Feel free to reach out. Don't sit on the fence. Make sure you do something, because a good idea in theory is exactly that, just a good idea. So make today count. Thanks again, Brett. Look forward to catching up soon.
Cheers. Thanks, Jackson. See you, mate.